We all we get into relationships based on chemistry, right?
Yeah,
Shared jokes, maybe a love for the same terrible 80s movies.
of course.
But if you've been in a partnership for a while, you know that intuition is a wonderful start, but it's a pretty terrible tool for long-term planning.
It really is.
Eventually, you have to talk about the messy stuff, the infrastructure of a shared life,
Yeah.
money, careers, how you fight.
And that's where having some structure really helps. Today, we're doing a deep dive into the 20 Questions Couples Compatibility Test. It's from a body of work the authors call the FIA-verse.
The FIA-verse, that's energetic.
It is. The whole idea is to move those big, crucial conversations out of the we'll talk about it later zone and, into actual proactive planning.
Is that connection, the name FIA-verse, this high-energy idea with what sounds like a very structured, almost analytical test.
Exactly. The philosophy is that a great relationship shouldn't just be stable. It should be dynamic, a source of energy, a fire. But to harness that energy, you need alignment. And this test, it's explicitly designed not as a pass-fail grade for your relationship. It's more of a diagnostic tool.
So it's not a score.
Not at all. It's meant to force you to compare your internal maps of the world and see where your core values, your lifestyles, and your conflict styles actually line up, and more importantly, where they don't.
That makes a lot of sense. It's not about having identical answers. It's about understanding the difference between your answers. It's like a map that shows you where you need to build a stronger bridge.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay, let's unpack this. We've got 20 questions to get through, so let's start with the foundation.
Oh.
What areas does this thing force us to confront right out of the gate?
So we begin with the absolute bedrock, life, goals, and values. This is what the framework calls the why of the relationship.
The why.
Right. The source material basically argues that if you don't agree on the fundamental direction you're heading, the daily management, the how, is just going to fracture the partnership eventually. It doesn't matter how much you love each other.
And the questions here seem designed to anchor two huge topics right away. The first one is the 5-year plan. Where do you see yourself living and working 5 years from now?
That question is just masterful because it immediately tests the flexibility of your shared path.
How so?
Well, if one person is, say, tied to a specific city for family or their job, and the other has this dream of selling everything to live remotely in another country, you have a fundamental structural challenge right there. It hits geography and ambition at the same time.
Right. And right after that, they go straight into family aspirations.
Yeah.
And I like that they push beyond the simple yes or no on having kids.
They do. It's not just if you want them, but what does your ideal parenting style look like? Are you more about attachment parenting or, fostering hands-off independence? How do you view discipline?
So many potential points of friction there.
Huge. If one partner wants a really strict structure and the other wants radical freedom for the kids, the misalignment isn't in the goal. It's in the daily moment-to-moment execution of that goal.
I also found the question on legacy really powerful. What is the one thing you want to be remembered for? Because that just strips away job titles, income, all of it, and it gets right to the core of what a person is all about.
It really reveals their source of meaning, doesn't it? For one person, legacy might be about a scientific discovery. For another, it's raising kind children. And if one person's legacy depends on, say, intense public achievement, and the other's is about quiet community service.
You have to figure out how those two things are going to coexist, how they'll compete for time, for money.
For attention, exactly. And then comes the ultimate stress test.
A career dilemma. If one of you gets a dream job offer in another country, what do you do?
This one tests what they call asymmetrical sacrifice. It's a huge part of any modern partnership. Are we prioritizing the us, the relationship unit, over an individual's dream? Or is the understanding that sometimes, one person's ambition requires a major disruption for everyone?
And if one partner's default answer is we stay and the other's is always we go,
then your basic programming for dealing with change is it's fundamentally different, low compatibility.
So if you go through this first section, the foundational values, and you find these big mismatches in the why, what's the takeaway?
It's what the source calls the strong foundation check. If you're profoundly misaligned here in this first section, the relationship is starting with a really significant deficit. It forces you to ask, are we walking the same path, or are we just two people on parallel paths who happen to share a home?
Wow. Okay, so that sets the big vision. Now let's pivot from that to the granular reality of it all, because
Right.
this is where the daily friction really starts, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. This is often more destructive than the big disagreements. This is section 2, lifestyle and finances, the how.
The how.
This part is all about the quality of your daily life. The source calls it achieving harmonious flow, managing shared space, time, money in a way that's smooth and enjoyable.
We have to start with money. The stats always show it's a huge cause of stress in relationships. The first question is about defining the big purchase. What dollar amount means you have to discuss it together?
It's such a deceptively simple question.
Right.
Because for someone who grew up with, a scarcity mindset, maybe $500 feels like a massive expense that needs a full meeting. For someone else, that number could be 5,000.
And if those numbers are that far apart, one person feels controlled all the time, and the other feels anxious about sudden debt.
You're creating resentment without even trying, so defining that number is critical.
And then there's the bigger philosophy behind it, saving versus spending. Are you a save for a rainy day person or a live for today person?
Which is really about two different ways of managing anxiety. The saver feels safe when the bank account is full. The spender feels safe when their current needs and desires are met. If those are pulling in opposite directions,
That every discussion about retirement or a vacation becomes this huge emotional battle.
it stops being about math and starts being about feelings.
Okay, here's where I think the analysis gets really useful, moving past money. The question on division of labor is key chores, cooking, cleaning, but they specifically mention life admin.
Yes. The source gets that the silent killer of harmony at home is the mental load, that life admin.
The invisible work.
Exactly. We're talking about the cognitive labor, who schedules the dentist appointments, remembers the birthdays, handles the insurance paperwork, knows when the car needs an oil change. This test forces you to name who owns that work, not just who scrubs the floor.
Because if that's all on one person, even if the physical chores are 50-50, it leads to total burnout,
And a deep, deep sense of inequality.
which connects so well to how we recharge. The test looks at your social battery. On a weekend, do you want a quiet night in, or are you hosting a big party?
And that flows directly into the next one, personal space. How much alone time do you actually need to feel recharged?
This is a big one.
It is. If one person is a huge extrovert who gets energy from being around people, and the other is a serious introvert who needs, say, 2 hours of total silence every day, that need for space can feel like rejection to the extrovert.
They can take it personally.
Easily.
So what does it mean if you're aligned on the big picture stuff? You both want a family, you share core values, but you're totally misaligned on these daily lifestyle questions.
The test suggests that your foundation is strong, but the daily friction is going to cause some serious wear and tear. It's not sustainable. The goal here isn't to find common ground so much as it is to agree on a system of compromise that respects what both partners truly need.
So you have to create rules almost.
You have to establish mutual agreements immediately, yeah.
Huh?
For solitude, for social time, for financial security, it becomes about systems.
Okay, let's move into the third and maybe the most complex section, the mechanics of connection, communication, and conflict. This is like the emotional wiring system.
I like that. It is. It's the system that handles stress and repair and growth. The source calls this part building empathetic echoes,
Empathetic echoes.
creating a feedback loop where you actually hear and validate each other, especially when things are tough.
He starts right away with fighting styles, asking about conflict style. Do you need immediate resolution or do you need time to cool off first?
And this basically dictates the pattern of every argument you'll ever have. If one person is an immediate processor, a chaser, who has to talk it out right now,
And the other is a delayed processor, a retreater, who needs, an hour to calm down.
you get that toxic chase and retreat cycle. The chaser feels abandoned, and the retreater feels pressured and overwhelmed. You have to understand that mechanical difference before a fight ever starts.
And that connects right to growth. How do you react when your partner points out a habit that bothers them? Are you defensive, or do you see it as feedback?
A healthy relationship just requires vulnerability and accountability. The test is really asking if you see that kind of criticism as a personal attack or as valuable data for making the relationship better.
Then it shifts to emotional expression, detailing the 5 love languages. We've heard of these: words of affirmation, acts of service, gifts, quality time, physical touch. Why is it so important to test this directly?
Because the way you naturally give love is often totally different from how you need to receive it.
Right.
So if my main language is acts of service, I show you I love you by, I don't know, fixing your car. But
Right.
if your main language is quality time, you just feel ignored because I was in the garage all afternoon instead of on the couch with you.
It's like you're speaking different languages.
It is. The test gives you the Rosetta Stone you need for that emotional connection to actually land.
And right alongside that is apology language. What does a sincere apology even look like to you?
Because it's not universal. For one person, it might be hearing the words, I take responsibility. For another, it's an act of restitution. You have to fix what you broke. If I keep saying, I'm sorry, but what you need is for me to change my behavior, then my apology is useless to you.
Even if you're being sincere.
Exactly. It's about effectiveness.
The transparency question might be the trickiest one here. It asks, are there any areas of life that should remain private, even from a partner? That feels like it goes against the ideal of total intimacy.
It's a nuanced point. The source isn't pushing for secrets, but for defining personal autonomy within the partnership.
Okay.
It's asking if a partner feels they're entitled to read every text, see every bank statement, know every single private thought. The conversation is less about honesty and more about respecting psychological boundaries.
So it's about a need for privacy versus a need for total sharing.
And if those needs are fundamentally different, the test flags it as a major clash in what you both expect from intimacy.
And finally, rounding this out, we have support when you're stressed. Do you want solutions or just an ear? And finding the spark. What's your favorite way to reconnect after a long week?
And that spark question is so important because it becomes your go-to ritual for maintenance. It's the low-effort, high-return activity you both know will hit the emotional reset button.
Whether it's a date night or just reading together in the same room.
Knowing what that ritual is can get you through some really stressful times.
Okay, we've gone through the 20 questions. The why, the how, the repair. Now let's look at the interpretation guide from the source, because this is where it all comes together. It's not a score, it's about alignment levels.
Exactly. And they stress that perfect scores aren't real. True compatibility is about having differences that complement each other. So the guide breaks the results down to 3 levels.
And if a couple has high alignment like 15 or more similar answers, they're called the celestial inferno. I love that name.
It's great, isn't it?
But is there a warning that comes with that? I mean, achieving celestial inferno status could make you complacent.
All right.
You might stop doing the work.
And that's exactly the warning they give. A celestial inferno means you have a powerful engine and a shared map. The action step isn't to just relax. It's to celebrate that and then keep the engine maintained.
Don't take it for granted.
Right. If you stop talking about your 5-year plan just because it lined up last year, you'll start to drift.
Okay, then there's mixed alignment, which they call the blazing comet. This is probably where most people land. You're aligned on the big why, the core values, but you differ on the how.
So your destination is the same, but you're fighting over how to get there. You both want a family, but you can't agree on money or how to argue. The day-to-day journey becomes miserable.
So what's the action there?
It's immediate. Focus on compromise. You have to intentionally build bridges over those gaps in your daily habits and your financial systems.
And then there's the danger zone, low alignment, the radiant ember. This is where you have fundamental disagreements on the big stuff kids, location, money.
And the source is pretty blunt here. A radiant ember means your fundamental paths are mismatched. The action is a deep, serious, non-judgmental conversation, probably with a professional, to see if the shared dream is even viable long-term.
It's a reality check.
A big one. It's about deciding if the massive effort needed to align those core values is something you're both actually willing to do.
And the summary page gives these action sparks, which turn all this into concrete steps. This is where it gets really practical.
It is. For those mixed alignment couples, the guide talks about navigating nuances, those moderate differences in, say, personal space or saving habits. The action is simple but hard. Create mutual agreements.
So you make rules.
You codify it. If one person needs 3 hours of quiet time, you schedule it and protect it. If the big purchase limit is $1,000, that's the rule, period.
And for the bigger disagreements, the radiant embers. The focus is on kindling new paths.
Which is their way of saying engage in open, non-judgmental dialogue. You have to get under the disagreement to the root fear. Why won't one partner move? Is it really about the job, or is it a fear of losing their community?
If you address the fear, you can find more creative solutions.
Exactly. Non-obvious solutions.
I also really appreciate the specific rituals they suggest, like scheduling a weekly communication catalyst check-in.
That changes communication from being reactive, only talking when there's a problem to being proactive. It's a habit,
And practicing affection affirmations.
which is just a conscious effort to speak your partner's love language every day, even if it feels unnatural to you. If they need words of affirmation, you literally have to schedule time to give them verbal praise.
And the practical idea for adventure awaits, planning activities that cater to both the introvert and the extrovert.
It just systematizes the effort. It turns relationship maintenance from guesswork into something you can actually plan and track.
So when we boil it all down, what does this all mean? The core philosophy of this whole five-verse thing seems to be that compatibility isn't about never disagreeing. It's about having the tools to navigate those disagreements when they happen.
That's it. If your values, your why are aligned, you have the leverage you need to figure out the day-to-day how. A structured tool like this is just a shortcut to getting that information about your own partnership.
It gives you the map, the vocabulary, and the action plan. And speaking of plans, let's leave you with a final thought from the test's summary. They call it the Dreamweaver's step. If you and your partner lay out your 5-year plans today, how often should you actually revisit them to make sure the partnership is still supporting both of your dreams as you both inevitably grow and change?
Because life happens, people evolve. That initial blueprint needs to be looked at again and again, maybe every year, maybe after any major life event. Maintaining a celestial inferno takes constant fuel.
It's a question worth thinking about, whether you feel like a blazing comet or a radiant ember. Use these kinds of tools to fuel your own understanding. Keep your flame bright.